Welcome to the Contact Podcast.
Oh yeah, baby.
What's up, guys? Welcome into the Contact Podcast. I'm your host, Donovan Jones. Genuinely excited about my guest today. We got my man, Marty, Cali Marty.
As I live and breathe.
Yes, sir. How you doing, bro? How's
Doing
life in
great.
California?
I love it. Weather is great. Today's a great day. Learning to love California. Learning to love. That's the best way to describe it.
It's how long have I been there now?
Okay, so when we last spoke, that was like exactly almost like a year. That's when I had just moved. I had moved in May. So, about the same time, but it's about to be a full year. And I do like it a lot. I love being here. I love the weather. I love the quality of life. I think it is very expensive. But I feel like being out here, God has provided everything I've ever needed. And so I'm very, very blessed. I have a little boy now since we've last spoke. And life has definitely changed in a lot of great ways. And so I'm excited for the future. But yeah, California is great.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember last time we talked, you had something's going on with your dog. You got stuck in some briars or something.
No, my
man.
dog. There's so many things that have happened with him. It might have been he ate the beets. That was something.
No. You said he was walking around
one in the world. Like he ate beets and we didn't know, so he was like pooping. We thought he was pooping blood, so we ran to the hospital and was like, "What's going on?" And in the middle of it, my wife's like, he got into the beets. That's what happened. He's not bleeding. It's like they wanted like $1,000 X-ray. We were like, maybe just put him down. I'm just kidding. No, but last time, dude, when he first moved to California, he was just getting to all this chaos because he doesn't know where he's at, and so he probably. There's so many little things. He's got scratches everywhere. He's just we call him a Brazilian street dog. I don't know why that just makes sense when you see him. It's like. He's one of those guys who will like fight for like food, like very gentle. You see in like videos, it's like trying to get food and you give it to him. It's great.
Yeah. So who goes to the doctor more, the dog or the kid?
Man, the dog. At this point with the dog, like it's just. I love him. He's a great rescue. He's just a troublemaker. Like the other day, he escaped outside and was just in the yard for like 2 hours and no one knew. We were like, where is he? Where the heck is he? And so I see him waiting by the door. I'm like, we're having a party inside the house. And I'm like, he's outside. Like, who let him out? He's just outside full of dirt. I'm like, it's just a whole thing. Tore up the backyard. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Well, man, first of all, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on again, man. Been super excited about this since we were able to set it up. So, you've been on before. I don't know if you remember or not, but I do something on here called the Big Three, where it's just 3 random questions. Yeah. But since you've been on here before, I give my reoccurring guests the option to choose. You could do the Big Three, or you could do what's called What's Up. And What's Up is basically what I do for solo episodes, just to share a random story. It could be something that happened in your past, something that's going on in your life right now. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, let's do the story. I'll tell a tale.
All right, let's go. Let's hear it.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
All right, a random story. Okay. It could be about anything.
Whatever you want.
Okay. I don't know if I ever told this story before, but here's a funny story. First one comes to mind. One time in Miami, me and my wife had got Chinese food, and there was something on the news, and we had just like moved to our house. Something in the news about a guy who was following and like break-ins and stuff like that. I don't know if did I tell you guys this story last time on the podcast? All right. People were breaking into houses. People were following people. That was like a thing where people would follow you to your house. And then when you're walking in, they'll just steal and ransack the house. It was like scary. And kind of outside of our neighborhood, but you just never know. And, once you find out about those things, you're like on extra, you're being extra careful. So I was getting Chinese food, and as I was driving, it was only it's like a 5-minute drive to the house, literally like a straight road. And as I'm driving, there's a car that like it just was getting close to me, and it was like flashing its lights towards me. And I was like, okay, something's odd. Get into a different lane. I thought he wants to get around me. He kept following me. Like every time I'd go left, he'd go left. Every time I'd go right, He'd go right. And I was like, okay. So it's literally following me to my house. So I call my wife and I'm like, hey, get ready. I'm going to run into the house. There's like some car following me. I don't know if he wants problems. I don't know what the deal is. I'm scared. Kind of spooked out more than scared. I was like, get the baseball bat, like get the gun ready. So I pull up into the house. I think we lived in an apartment at this time. We just gotten married. This is in Boca Raton, actually. I run inside the house, shut the car off, the whole thing, shut the lights off. That's how you gotta do it. You shut the lights off, pretend like you're not there.
Yeah.
And then, I'm like, somebody's following me. I'm whispering to my wife and I hear, and I'm like, what the heck? Like this guy like followed me to my house. Like I don't have a Ring camera at that time. Like what the heck does this guy want? Like he's trying like, what did I do? And then I'm like, what? I'm trying to base up my voice. Like, what? He goes, chicken fried rice? I forgot the fried rice at the restaurant. And so it wasn't a killer. It wasn't a kidnapper. It was somebody who was just trying to help me with my order. He drove behind me to make sure that I got my chicken fried rice. Chicken fried rice? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Here's a tip of $5. I'm sorry. I like evaded him for like, it was only like a 6-minute drive, but I evaded him. I was going around. I was going crazy, bro. And the whole time it was just a guy, chicken fried rice. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. He was like, I tried to stop you. I was trying to put the lights on. I tried to yell at the car. And I was like, I thought you were trying to kill me. I'm sorry. I was like extra vigilant. I was just thinking about that story the other day. I was like, why did I do this? So embarrassed. It was at the time, it was one of those things where you shut the door. It's like 5 seconds of silence, and me and my wife started dying. We were just like, oh my gosh, that was the craziest, stupidest. In my own brain, I got upset and scared and riled up the whole time. Nothing was going to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, my pastor talks about that as far as like ministry goes. He talks about this book. I can't remember what it's called, but he's saying that the title of the book is something like "My Neighbor is a Serial Killer," to where we put all these thoughts in our heads to like why I can't tell somebody about Jesus or why I can't speak to somebody in a positive way because that person's going to kill me or that person's going to do something to me, Yeah. And so it's funny how Satan can get in our minds in those type of ways. And in your situation, obviously, that's just kind of a funny story. But
I thought I was rebuking him. I was like praying God for God. It's. I think a lot. I would totally agree with your pastor in that. I'm going to read that book because most of the time in life, almost everything, in my personal opinion, is just perception, right? So the perception to be afraid, the perception to be, in actuality, like people are very consumed with themselves, right? For the most part, you think someone's mad at you, and they're like, I'm not even thinking about you. Like I had a buddy the other day who he's a friend of mine, but he was like trying to be like a smart aleck towards me and put little comments, stuff like that. And I'm like, bro, are you picking on me or something? Is there something wrong here? He's like, no, I was just trying to be funny to you. And I was like, oh, I thought he was being malicious the whole time. He was just trying to be funny. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Now looking back, you're like, oh, you look at the comments, you're like, oh, he's trying to be funny. I was just in my own brain about it. And I put that on him because my perception was he was just trying to bully me. And then he was just trying to be my friend. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. Yeah, that's the thing about it. All right, so I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to get into, because I know you're putting out a lot of new music right now.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. So first of all, the flop era. What is that even about? Where did that come from? Where did that idea come from?
First person to ask. This is the exclusive for you. No one's actually.
Let's go. Let's get it.
I actually haven't. I like one of my strategies for my brand, like. Just for me, I'm like, hey, I'm starting fresh. That's the way I thought about it. I'm starting fresh. Like the music I drop is what I want people to know me for. Social Club, I love it. That's Social Club. Now it's like Marty. All I have really is Marty for President. But now I'm not that person. I mean, I made Marty for President when I was not even engaged. I wasn't even married at the time. So who I am now for me is like who I am. So we when we got off the label, so most artists, when they tell their story about a label, it's always like a terrible horror story. Not like that with us. We fulfilled our contract. I really appreciate those guys. Hudson, Brad O'Donnell, Josh Bailey. Those are the people who kind of run the internal of Capital, and they're a Capital Christian. They're the sweetest people in the world. Big champions of mine. Big in ways like they're mentors. So we left the label in a really good place. They liked us. We got our masters back. We were making money. So it's most artists, they can't get released off the label because they owe money. We didn't owe anything. We were in the green. Our fans support us, and we're very blessed to have that. So we left the label, and then you have what they call a sunset clause. So sunset clauses. You leave the label, and a lot of times you have like 8 months, 6 months where you can't release music. You have to just wait. It's like you just wait a certain amount of time. I don't know really. I think they do that because it's like, hey, what if you blow up here? They still want the option to re-sign you or something. So we had those conversations, and I just didn't want to re-sign. I wanted to do my own thing. And so I did entertain a couple label conversations. And so a lot of the times with the labels, when you talk to them, they're trying to convince you why you need them. That's the whole conversation. It's the whole pitch. Hey, we want to do this for you. We want to do this. They're laying things out. A lot of times they can't fulfill those promises, but they're going to lay them out. And so for me, they laid out like all these things, and they're like, listen, you were with a major label. We were one of the few artists besides NF. Lecrae did a major label with Columbia, but not a lot of Christian artists have been on a major. They've been on minors, And so they're like, hey, listen, when you leave a major, like they give me some percentage, like something like upwards of 80% of acts or artists, they're going to fail. They're going to flop. And so my idea was like, all right, well, I really believe in myself. Yeah. It's either I'm going to fail extraordinarily amazing. Like I'm going to fail amazing. I'm going to go all out with this failure because I really do believe in myself and I believe what I'm doing. And I don't want somebody over me to give me direction. I don't want to have anyone else's money. I don't want to be in debt to anybody. I want to do this myself. And so I was like, I guess they would say, 89% of acts, they flop when they leave a major and you go independent. So they're like, you need to sign to another major to have the same type of level that you're at in production, stuff like that. And I was like, I guess I'm in my flop era. I guess I'm in the era of my life where I'm going to willfully, extravagantly fail. That's, and so they would laugh and, I kind of just kept that to myself. Like, hey, this is my flop era. Like I'm going to fail. I'm going to do it the best way possible. So the idea is kind of like making fun of what they told me in the sense of like, hey, you're not going to do good if you go independent. So what I did was I worked out a deal with a company called Vidya. Vidya is one of the fastest growing. I mean, they started Apple Music. I didn't sign with them. I partnered with them to start my own label. And so, most artists, when they're independent, they go in TuneCore, they go in DistroKid. Those companies go through another company before they get to the actual distribution. And I found that and I was like, all right, I don't want to go through TuneCore. I'm losing money. So how do I go directly to a distributor? So they're the direct to distributors. They're literally like, there's no one in between us. It's me and them. I drop the song and goes right to Apple. And so I wanted something that was streamlined. I didn't want to get middleman. I wanted the highest percentage. And so that's what I got. I started my own label. It's called Apollo. And so Apollo is going to be a label where artists are going to be, it's not going to be reach. I'm not looking to do turn up music. I'm not looking to do music that is like what we've already seen in Christian music. I'm trying to do music that is for a more mature audience, more of so maybe they're going to be in their 23 and up. They're not going to be under, they might be under 23 if they're really cool, but they're mostly going to hit their, like this is not youth group music. It's just not. This is going to be something I'm proud of and that I feel like I want to create and put out into the world, especially there's a gap in Christian music right now where it's like we do worship, we do country, very like hip hop is done by reach. And then outside of that, it's like, that's it. I want to do something where it's like, hey, we have hip hop, we have soul, we have everything, but it has a certain sound to it. And so that's what Apollo Records is going to be. And so I haven't signed any artists, but I have distributed a couple artists that I really believe in. One of the artists, the first Christian rapper I ever heard, KJ52. I redid his whole new project. We're dropping 2 new songs this weekend. Like I'm rebranding him as an artist that is not a gimmick, and he asked me, he's like, would you ever want to produce for me? I said, yeah, if you do it my way and we don't have to be a gimmick, I'll do it my way. He said, okay. And so he dropped a new project and that's one of the first drops on Apollo, but he's not a signed artist. I'm just working with him. Another guy's West Rock, who's an indie rocker who I love. But I'm giving these guys like 100%. I'm not taking anything, but I'm looking and actively looking to sign artists that kind of feel like me. And the best way to do that is release a bunch of songs to show people what I'm doing. So I released January In My Room. February was Nope. March was Golf Course Meetings. April is going to be a new song. I just advertised it yesterday. It's called Yell at Me. May is going to be a song called Questions, which is like very asking the church some hard questions, making fun of the church in a playful way. Like I'm making fun of when people say "Daddy God" and stuff that a new believer would be like, "What is happening?"
What is this?
For me, I think a lot of how my perception is in Christian music, it's like my first opportunity going to church, and so when I first went to church, I had my buddy who was constantly like leaning over and being like, what he means, this doesn't normally happen, like we went to church and he's like talking about prophecy. Let's talk about the book of Revelations. Like, this is my first time coming, it's like not ideal. So he, instead of the gospel this weekend, we got the 7 blood moons. And so my buddy's like, I just want to apologize, it's not how we it's not normally what we talk about. And I always felt like sometimes church can be very embarrassing, the way that we get so self-centered into the culture that we bring, instead of thinking about, hey, how will we be perceived in terms of someone who doesn't understand what we're talking about? And so I love that we can go deep in the church, but also we have to be able to present the gospel in a way that's clear and not hard. So that's what the May song is about. And then June, I'm dropping the full-blown flop era. It's 10 songs. And then after that, I'm going to continually drop new music throughout the year. I'm working on some Christmas stuff. I got a collaborative album coming out. Social Club has music coming out in May. Like, it's just a nonstop flow of music. I feel like it's just the line is open, and me and Fern just want to go through and drop as much new music as we can, and hopefully start to shape what we want to see in Christian music in terms of, like, we want to shape good music that is for a different audience that just hasn't been reached yet. And I only think that a couple of artists have been able to do that. Caleb Gordon, I really love. Sam Riviera, I really love. That's kind of like what we're trying to do right now.
I love it so much because a lot of people feel like if you're a Christian, you just have to reach that audience of inside the 4 walls. I feel like the space that God has me, it's a spot that I can go to somebody else and say, I'm not from a church. I'm just a dude that loves Jesus, and I'm trying to tell you, the things that he's done in my life. Like, for instance, my pastor asked me to speak at our church last November, and I shared a story about, I went to a Hovey concert. Long story short, when I went there, I had the VIP. I went with my dad, my brother, my uncle, my 2 cousins. And when we got there, it was just me there early. None of them got the VIP. I go inside. There's a woman and a man standing at the front desk. And she's like, I said, hey, I'm here for the Hovey concert. She's like, okay, I'll take you to it. So we go up this elevator, and I'm thinking, this is weird. Like, why am I? Surely everybody that's come to the show is not going to go get on an elevator. I'm in Chattanooga. Okay. But the show's in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so anyway, we go up in the elevator. I walk in, and she's like, have a good show. And I'm thinking, what's she talking about? Oh. So I go over to the bar, and Tori Deshawn, he's just over there with his wife setting up. Big Breeze is on stage doing a sound check. Security doesn't say anything to me. Like, Hovey's dad was walking around, and I've had Hovey on the show, and I always try to do my homework. So I knew what his dad looked like. So I just started talking to him. He's like, hey, did you meet Chris's brother? Did you meet Chris's baby, his mom? So I met like his whole family. I ended up meeting Big Breeze's manager, all of these things. And I go outside and I call my wife. I'm like, this is the weirdest VIP I've ever been to. First of all, nobody checked me in. Nobody gave me a lanyard. And as I'm outside and I hear this noise, I look down at the end of the building, and there's a sign that says line forms here. And I turn around and look up, and it says backstage. I didn't even notice it. And so I turn around. I swear, I turn around.
Part of the staff.
So I go back in, and I'm just like talking to people, And so I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble or anything. So I go back, get in line and stuff like that. And on my way home, God showed me, because I'm asking God at that time, how am I going to get to where I feel like you're going to take me? And on my way home, he said, you know what? I can put you in rooms that it doesn't make sense. You don't know why you're in there, but nobody's going to question why you're in there.
That's good.
Nobody said anything to me about it at all. You know what I'm saying? And so I think I shared that story at my church, and I asked my pastor afterwards, what did he think about the message? Because it was the first time I had the opportunity to speak in front of, a congregation. And he was like, the only thing that I would say, and he said, I love the story, but I might leave out the part where you said rap music. And I thought about it for a minute, and then I was like, but that takes away the testimony.
Yeah.
Like that to me, if somebody has a problem with that, that's a faith problem on their part, because they're saying that God is not big enough to be used in any and every space. Yeah. Let's give that space to Satan. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's what that says to me.
I love that you said that. Yeah. I love that.
So I just piggybacking off of what you're saying, I love the heart behind Apollo and the things that you're doing there. So just to kind of switch gears a little bit, the last time you were on, you mentioned that you were an atheist before you came to Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say atheist. I wasn't like, actively like God's not real. I was more of agnostic. I just didn't know. I just had no idea. Um, and I felt like no one could prove it to me. Like, "Hey, can you prove it to me? Do you know really what happens when we die?" Like, I had a lot of these questions about God, but I think that's it's like for me, my favorite Bible story is actually Thomas. I love the story of Thomas. It's my favorite story. I don't like that he gets the rep of being doubting Thomas, but
Mm-hmm.
I like because I don't really feel like he was a doubter. I just don't believe that. I believe that he committed himself to Jesus to the point where he was so burnt and seeing like, wow, like this, I followed you and then you like left us. Like you're supposed to be back. Like you said you would resurrect. You said this. It's because, his own mind, he's thinking like Jesus is savior. This, we don't even know the personal meetings that we've had. And at the point where, the disciples are in the room and he's like, listen, really, it reminds me of me. He was so hurt by God because he was like, God, like you left. I have to see a miracle to prove, you have to prove to me that you're real by giving me a miracle. And that for him was, I have to put my hand in the part of his body he got stabbed. Like I have to see God move in an extraordinary way to really believe it. And Jesus being the kind, mature, loving, understanding savior that we have, he walks through the wall. He walks through the walls that we put up, right? I think that's symbolism. He walks through those walls that we put up for ourselves and say, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. And then like, you could say you're not going to do all these different things, but God has the sweetest way of meeting you where you're at. And so he walks through the wall and he talks to Thomas. And, I don't know if he was a doubter or not, but I do know that he had such a real loving experience with God that deepness of hurt, it's almost like church hurt. That deepness of hurt was like at the same level of his love for God. And it's like, well, a lot of us can have church hurt and we're so committed and we love Jesus so much. But when you get hurt by something, you almost like that void of love, it's like it's replaced with hurt. And so Jesus has a way in my life. And even when I left the church when I was about 24, I got saved when I was 18, went to church, experienced God in a strong way, then had church hurt. And left the church. It was like, I'm never going back. Like my pastor had an affair. My pastor stole money, was stealing money like 5 years into my walk. And I was like, I remember walking up, being like, I'm never going back. Like, this is it. And so in the process of social club, in the process of touring, in the process of not even trying to pursue God, he walked through the walls of my life. And he brought people. That's the way God works. He brings people into your life. And he brought a pastor by the name of Kevin McManus, who is not my pastor now, but he moved back to, I think he might be in Alabama or Louisiana. Just an amazing pastor. And he knew about my story. He heard about it and he would visit me at my job. I worked at the time at Nordstrom and he would visit just to be, what's going on? And the idea of like, he doesn't know who I am. He doesn't really, I didn't rap. I didn't do anything at that time, but he wanted to just love on me. And he knew that I was hurt. And he knew that I had potential. And to be something great. God put people in my life that just walked through the walls of my life. Jesus did that. And friends of mine, Kanata Smalls, friends of mine like Quan, friends of mine like Fern, people who just saw where God wanted me to be and knew where I was. How I was eating slop with the pigs and being like, you're better than that. Like there's more for you. And that's why I always say community is to me the most important aspect of our relationship with God, outside of your relationship with Jesus Christ and your wife, who's your first ministry. It's like community is there. You can't do this by yourself. And so, I mean, that's really what the church is. It's a community. It's not the building. It's the people. It's the people who are checking in on you. It's the people who love you, the people you can be accountable with. Like I have men who are my accountability partners and they see what's going on my phone. They see what's going on throughout my life. They ask me, they check in, they love on me. They're gracious. They don't make me feel stupid. They don't shame me and embarrass me. And that's Jesus. Jesus doesn't embarrass us. Jesus doesn't shame us. Jesus, when the woman's in the middle of getting caught with adultery, he kind of covers her and he's like, hey, if you've sinned, so if you haven't sinned, you throw the stone first and throw the stone. And all these guys are walking away, dropping their stones. Like Jesus protects, loves, but also just because he does that doesn't mean that standard's lowered. The standard never gets lowered. It's like, hey, I'm going to meet you where you're at. And then I'm going to tell you, hey, there's more that God has for you. And so that's exactly what he did in my life. And twice in my life twice in my life have I recommitted my life to God. When I was 18 and when I was 24. And the 18 years old, I was hurt deeply by the church, but by 24, I wised up and God kind of just restored me. And now I'm 35. God restored my life over the last 11 years to be someone who is in the Word, loves God, loves church, loves the kingdom a lot. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree. Community is so essential. And I want to say about my pastor too. He wasn't saying that about anything bad about rap music. He was
No,
just
yeah,
saying for my benefit, because he's like, I don't want the audiences that you're in front of, anybody to get turned off and not listen to what you have to say just
yeah,
because of that. And
yeah.
I was like, no,
He's
yeah,
giving you
I
wisdom.
totally,
Yeah, he's giving you wisdom
yeah,
because he knows his
yeah,
congregation. He knows who he's.
hmm,
I get that. Pastors,
yeah,
a good pastor will be like, hey, this is what you're getting into. Like you might be
hmm,
talking to people who don't understand why is he in rap music, or they have the negative connotation. So he has to explain that. So that's a good pastor.
yeah,
That's a good father.
absolutely, yeah. And I just feel like there's times that I know that God's going to put me in front of people that they're not going to like what I have to say, but that's why I feel called to be a pastor, because I'm called to speak about things that pastors won't talk about,
Yeah.
I feel like. And so, but anyway, um, about that community too, when we started going to the church that we are in now, my wife has become a part with several ladies groups and things like that.
Mm.
And just to see the growth in her and see the growth in myself and the lives of our kids because of a good church. Anybody out there that's listening to this right now, maybe if you've experienced some kind of church hurt, don't give up. Don't throw away that community just because of one bad experience. I
That's
grew
right.
up in churches that would not accept me because I have tattoos. You know what I'm saying? I got,
Yeah, yeah.
and the church and the church that I'm at now, I'm actually tonight, once we get off here, I'm leading a group. This is the first week I'm doing it. The next 8 weeks, I'm leading our Wednesday night group. And so, just an example of not every church is, has that stigma of you have to follow man-made legalistic rules. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I think that I think as a young person, and I think in culture, we're built to think that there's a point in our life that we're aiming for, this one point, right? It's like when I get here, I'll be happy, or when I have this,
mm,
I'll be set and comfortable. And that is the most toxic way of thinking, because when you get that thing, it's never enough. And so I think for me, it's like, I guess the best way to say it, like this season I'm in, is the book of Revelation. uh God speaks to John and says, "Come up here." I think it's like Revelation 1. It's like first book in the Revelation. It says, "Come up here, come higher." And I think to myself, like, that is God always telling us there's more. There's more. The closer you get to him, there's more. And so I'm realizing in my life, like, there's not one part of my life that is success. There's not one part of my life where I'm at my Christian, my relationship with God is my best. It's like I'm a
that's good.
constant work in progress. I think my therapist would always say that too. It's like, dude, you're limited. And when you realize that you're a work in progress, you're limited, but every day you're inching closer to look more like Jesus, it kind of takes the pressure off. It's like, hey, I don't
Yeah.
really have everything right now, but I have
Hmm.
everything I need, and he's got my back, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So, like I said, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take any
You
more
are,
of it here. But real quick,
yeah,
the last thing, I've been doing this with my last couple of guests.
yeah.
Is there something going on in your life? If not, I can just edit this part out. Is there something going on in your life right now that the Lord is using either to speak to you in some way or grow you in some way or anything like that
Yeah,
that you would be willing to
100%.
share?
I mean, I guess this is kind of stereotypical, but I just had a kid, and man, I think marriage teaches you to kill your ego, right? Like you have to kill your ego. You have to be able to. You're gonna have somebody who's gonna check you. Like a good wife, she'll be like, "Dude, what are you doing?" She'll call you out. A good wife will love you, give you grace, even though she knows your deepest, darkest secrets, everything in your life. And you're gonna know hers too. So it's like I'm learning to shed that ego with my wife. I've been married now, going to be 8 years, and God has really shaped me to kill that ego. I think with the kid, for me, God's teaching me patience.
Mm,
One of the first like month of having my baby, I hit this, and your dad. There's a moment that hits. I think I guess with the first kid that I got very frustrated. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, you get mad
Mhm.
and you don't know where to throw this anger. You're just mad. You're like, am I doing something wrong? He won't stop crying. It's been an hour. I've done everything. What the heck is going on here? And, it's like for me, I remember looking at my son and being like, what is going on with you? My wife walked in and she's like, well, you got to calm down, bro. Like, it's not his fault. He's been alive for a month. He doesn't know what planet he's on. And I'm like, I know I'm not mad at him. I'm just mad at what am I doing wrong? Like, am I messing up? And she's like, you just got to be patient. And that in this season is what I believe that God is teaching me, is this level of patience, this level of understanding with people. Like, I got into a confrontation the other day with a friend of mine, and normally I'd be way more aggressive. I'd be way more angry, and because I want to throw around my strength, I want to throw around my bully, my weight. And this time I just said, hey man, I don't think this was intentional. I just want to tell you, I love you, but I feel like you're doing this. And when I did that, the response was so much sweeter and kinder that I would normally get from somebody. It's like when you lead with patience, and I think there has been many times where God has used Fern to be patient with me, being a young
Mm.
kid. I'm 10 years younger than him, and I'm aggressive when it comes to stuff. I'm like on it. I'm ready to go always. And he had to, or times I would jump the gun or say something really kind of that would hurt his feelings. Instead of publicly being like, hey, what are you doing? He'd pull me aside and be like, hey man, I just want to let you know, there's patience marks a strong man. And so I want to be patient. I want God to teach me patience. And I want God to teach me how to shed that ego of mine. And so those are two things personally I've learned in marriage, and with this new kid. Now I've had him at the house for about going on 3 months. In April 21st will be like the third month, about 20 days. And so, yeah, like learning how to be patient and learning how to not take things personal. It's not me. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just that he's a baby, and I have to
Mhm.
be kind, and I have to be, and that, man, when you realize how important patience is. I think most people, we hear patient, we think it's like waiting in line. It's not. There's different areas of just being gracious. God is patient with us in the middle of our worst. Like how many times could have God called us out or pointed out our sins? He didn't have to. He was patient, and I want to be a patient man towards my wife, towards friends, towards music, because I probably burned a lot of bridges just not being a patient man. And so, yeah,
Mm.
being patient right now is something I think about daily. I'm doing
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where I'm like Bible app patience. That's like give me all the scriptures on patience. So
Yeah, man. That's good. Yeah, man, Marty, you're the best.
really
Appreciate your
nice. Thank you,
time
Brandon.
coming
Yeah,
on
dude.
again.
What a privilege. I mean, called to act. I mean, this is one of my. I mean, I feel like with you, it's a different podcast. It's like
Yeah.
with you, it's just more of like friends talking. And I hope that when people hear this, that's how they get it. It's just two friends talking about God, life. And if we were on the phone, this would have been the same conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I want it to feel. And I've had several people tell me they feel like they know my family. They know me, even though they've never met me, just from the podcast. And that's what I want.
Mhm.
I don't want people to feel like we're talking at them. We want them to feel like a fly on the wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
man, I'll be praying for you about
Thank
patience.
you,
I know that's a
man.
big
Please,
one.
I'm messed
Praying
up.
for you
I'm screwed up, so please do that.
man, every day. But man, I appreciate you. Lord willing, you guys enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
Lord willing, same time next week. God bless you guys. Have a great week.
Thank you, D, man. Thank you for everything.
Yes, sir.
You can't tell me I ain't blessed. No.